ESPN's draft analyst Matt Miller on the value that NFL teams are placing now on running backs. You had, Derrick Henry, Saquon Barkley, and just how strong this year's running back class is.
Will we see an uptick in that you won't be afraid to draft a running back or two in the first round?
I think you won't be afraid, and you also won't get the public backlash, except for from Mel Kiper, who says you should never draft a running back in the first round. Otherwise, you're not going to get your beat reporters in there saying, oh my God, I can't believe we took Ashton Genty in the top 10, or we took Omarion Hampton in the top 30. I think you can point to Bijan Robinson and Jahmyr Gibbs even as examples of drafting a guy in the first round. They can come in and be the backbone of your offense. I think more importantly, if you have your quarterback, if you're a team that has that figured out, that's the time to draft a running back now, because you have that position solved and you can go back to being a balanced team. But this is one of the best running back classes, if not the best running back class I've ever seen. And I've been doing this for 15 years. So I think we've got a shot to have a record for the modern era, which would be 30 running backs drafted. The last time that happened was 2017, which was, Leonard Fournette, Christian McCaffrey, players like that. So I don't know that we see 3 fly off the board in the top 15 necessarily, but feel pretty confidently we could see 3 in the top 30 picks.
And it'll be interesting to see. Browns pick 33rd overall. That's, first in the second round. Is there a guy that they really like that they think can be a difference maker? If there is, you got to think about taking him at 33. Genty's going to be long gone by that point. The question is, if they trade back, is Genty a guy that they look at? Let's welcome in Dalton Wasserman, PFF data analyst, co-host of the PFF College Football Show. So, Dalton, the running backs, is there a guy that, if he's sitting there at 33, you think the Browns should look at because he can be a big-time difference maker? Or is it just too deep to mess around with taking a guy that high?
No, I think a guy that you could be looking at, depending on if he goes in the 20s or if he's still sitting there at 33, is Omarion Hampton from North Carolina. I think most think that he's the second best back behind Ashton Genty out of Boise State. He's got a ton of power, breaks tackles. He's a yards after contact machine. He's got good speed for a guy 220 plus pounds. I think he's the type of guy, especially in Cleveland, who you think about, okay, here's this hard charging back that could jumpstart a running game, especially in the cold weather when people don't feel like tackling him. I think Omarion Hampton, if he were sitting there at 33, that first pick on a Friday night, that could be the most likely one.
Yeah, the other thing is as you say that, there are always guys that slide and some teams fall in love with. You could get an offer you couldn't refuse for the second pick in that second round.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's going to be something that's a little bit of an advantage when you get to monitor that overnight, right? And think about where other teams are sitting and getting, 20 hours or so to make that phone call. So I think it is a spot where, look, the Browns have a lot of options when it comes to improving their team. This is going to be a long-term project, most likely. And it depends, let's say there's another quarterback, a Jackson Dart or a Jalen Milroe that a team wants that maybe the Browns don't necessarily. You talk about those trade down options, because I think having more assets for the future and even the future within this draft is something the Browns need to heavily take into account, because we're not really looking at them as having a winning window in 2025.